Welcome back. In the previous video, we talked about the emergence of philosophy and democracy in Athens during the Archaic Age. But it wasn't just changes in the way people were investigating their natural world or changes in the way people expressed their political will that were happening during this time in Athens. Also during this time, there was a flowering of the arts, especially the performing arts. Of course, we're primarily concerned with drama in this unit we're about to do on tragedy. But to begin with, let's talk about the choral ode. And this is an old form of art, usually for religious purposes, wherein as many as 50 dancers would perform in front of crowds while singing and reciting poetry at the same time. They would perform these choral odes at a competition called the City Dionysia Festival each spring in Athens. In this competition, people paid tribute to the god Dionysus or Bacchus. And it coincided with festivals having to do with wine and grapes. The choral ode is important for us because it gives rise to the genre of drama. And for the Greeks, this is essentially a combination of the choral ode and a recitation by one man of a poem that conveyed some sort of story, with the reader of the poem being in some way involved with the story. However, Thespis, the semi-legendary founder of the dramatic arts, had the innovation of not just making speeches interacting with the chorus, something the Athenians were always keen to do. Thespis took it to the next level. He actually pretended to be someone else while he was on stage. And this is an important innovation for us. He would interact with the chorus, and the chorus would talk back to him, creating a dramatic interplay. This is how the modern idea of theater came about in the West. The Greeks would build structures for theatrical performances all over their world during this time. Here's one from the Segesta, Sicily. Here's another one from Paestum, Italy. Here's another one from Epidavros in Greece. And this one's quite large. It actually seats some 15,000. And that little white dot in the center of the circle, that's me, can be heard all the way from the top up here when speaking the same volume I'm now speaking to you. There are some terms you need to know when we're studying theater. You need to know about the skene, which is a building or tent at the back of the acting area, often painted for scenery. And you should think of this as a backdrop. In most of the plays we'll be reading, this will take the shape of a temple or a palace. There's the orchestra, and that's the dancing space that the chorus would dance in. And that's this circular space right here on the stage, in front of the stage. There's the chorus itself, which is a group of 12 to 15 men who sing and dance during the plays. And they often represent the collective community, but not necessarily the thoughts or intentions of the poet. Finally, there's the mechane, which is a crane used to lift actors above the acting area, usually actors that are playing gods, hence the phrase deus ex machina, or God out of the machine. Greek actors during this period acted while wearing masks. You can see a Greek tragic actor here, and he's actually holding the mask in his left hand that he'll be wearing on stage. For our purposes, the most important of the early Greek tragic playwrights, because we have enough of his work, is a man named Aeschylus, who lived between 525 and 456. And he's thought of by many as the brainiest of the Greek tragic playwrights. Frequently he made up words for his plays that no one had heard before. And the Greeks famously had a hard time understanding what he was saying, in much the same way that people to this day have a hard time understanding the dialogue on stage in a Shakespeare play. He's also famous for us for the innovation of putting a second actor on stage. It doesn't seem like a radical idea, but it was at the time. Before this, a single actor was on stage, interacting only with the chorus, or perhaps the audience. Aeschylus introduced the idea of having two actors speak to each other on stage in addition to the chorus. He's also important for us, not just because he left us so many of his plays, but also because we know for a fact that he was so successful at the City Dionysia competition. He won 14 times, which would be like medaling in the Olympics 14 times. Very impressive. I'd like to explain for a minute to you what he's doing in the Eumenides. The story he's taking in the Eumenides is a very, very old one. It's a story that takes place just after the Trojan War, and the roots of the story go back way before the Trojan War. This wasn't uncommon in the tragic plays of ancient Greece. They often talked about stories that were very ancient even to the audience. Even possibly while commenting on modern events. Here's the backstory for this play. King Pelops of Argos had two sons, Atreus and Thyestes. You've heard of Atreus because Atreus is the father of Agamemnon and Menelaus, the kings that appear to us in the Iliad. Prince Thyestes seduced Atreus' wife, and this sparked a civil war between the two brothers. Atreus won the civil war, pushing Thyestes and his family out of the city. Years later, Thyestes returns to the city as a suppliant. Atreus takes him in. It seems that all has been forgiven. But that night, Atreus served all but one of Thyestes' children to him, concealed in dishes as chopped up meat. The survivor of this massacre was a boy named Aegisthus. After he found out what his brother had done, Thyestes left the feast with his son Aegisthus and never came back. Atreus' sons, Menelaus and Agamemnon, go off to fight the Trojan War, as you know. And they come back, but there are some problems along the way. One of the logistical problems that happens along the way is that Agamemnon has a hard time setting sail in Aulis, and in order to get set sail, he sacrifices his own daughter Iphigenia. This angers his wife, and so while he's away at war, Clytemnestra takes a lover named Aegisthus. Remember Aegisthus? When he comes back, she pretends all is well, but she murders him at the behest of her lover Aegisthus. When Agamemnon's son Orestes finds out about this, he kills his own mother, and he kills Aegisthus. What happens in the Greek world when you kill someone who's related to you by blood? The following thing happens. You become the prey of a group of creatures called the Eumenides. Who are the Eumenides? Eumenides, also known as the Furies, or Erinenes, are avengers, and they are born from the blood that fell to the earth when Cronos castrated his father. They are responsible for avenging crimes, especially crimes committed against family members. So we see them chasing people around. Sometimes they're depicted with wings, sometimes without wings. Sometimes they have snakes crawling through their hair, sometimes they don't. In any event, they're almost always depicted not wearing much in the way of clothing. I would add at this point that they're called Eumenides by the Greeks as a kind of euphemism. The name really means gracious goddesses or kindly ones, when really Erinenes, the true term, means furies or avengers, and the Greeks were afraid to speak this word because it was like invoking the name of the boogeyman.
Our story then begins at Apollo's shrine at Delphi. The priestess walks into the shrine and finds the Furies seated on the altar there, and she's terrified. The door is open, and we see that Apollo has put them to sleep. And then our main character, Orestes, steps forth. And we find out that he's been ordered by Apollo to murder his own mother. At this point, Apollo decides that the best thing to do for Orestes is send him to Athens so he can get justice in this case. After all, he was the one who had ordered the murder. So he whisks Orestes away to Athens, and the Furies, the Eumenides rather, don't wake up for a while, not until they're awakened by the ghost of dead Clytemnestra. She's angry at them for not avenging her death. And so she sends them to Athens to find Orestes. And here we are, the Acropolis, or high city of Athens. And this is a defensive area in Athens. It was considered to be the safest part of the city. And is the part of the city where is located the Parthenon, or temple to Athena, the virgin goddess. And it's here that the trial of Orestes takes place. So let's talk about this. In this trial, you may ask yourself, what is the basis of the defense's case? Why is Orestes' killing of his own mother not to be seen as a crime against one's own blood? And Apollo answers this in this play, starting at line 657. I will tell you, and I will answer correctly. Watch, the mother is no parent of that which is called her child, but only a nurse of a new planted seed that grows. The parent is he who mounts. A stranger, she preserves a stranger's seed, if no God interfere. And he calls to witness in this case the case of Athena, the goddess who has no mother. Right? She was brought to term inside the thigh of her father Zeus. And it's a peculiar argument in this case. It goes against what we know about science and genetics and how all that works. So his argument is that
It's okay that Orestes killed his mother because they're not related by blood. Only a father is related to his son by blood. Well, using this spurious argument, they are able to convince the jurors in this case, Athena being the tie-breaking juror, that their argument wins. And in fact, Athena tells us that there is no mother anywhere who gave me birth, but for marriage I am always for the male with all my heart, and strongly on my father's side. So in a case where the wife has killed her husband, lord of her house, her death shall not mean most to me. So Orestes wins the trial. But what does this mean for justice in Athens? And that's really what this case is all about, and that's what this play is all about. Athena ordains a new court to come forth in Athens so that justice won't be in the hands of one man. That's the way it's been under the tyrants and kings before that. She does this so that justice will be in the hands of many, and if it's anonymous, people can vote their conscience and be as honest as they would like. And here's what Athena has to say about the nature of justice. No anarchy, no rule of a single master. Thus I advise my citizens to govern and to grace, and not to cast fear utterly from your city. What man who fears nothing at all is ever righteous? So she's very clear in saying that this new form of government they have that involves trial by jury is not anarchy. It's a rule of people who have a vested interest in the outcome, always. Well, the outcome in the case does not please the Eumenides. They're very, very upset. But Athena makes them a promise that she'll do something for them. She promises them a new job in the city, and their job is this. In complete honesty, I promise you a place of your own, deep hidden under the ground, that is yours by right, where you shall sit on shining chairs beside the hearth to accept devotions offered you by your citizens. Well, what will their job be? It seems like she just offered them a nice place to sit. By way of talking about the way things used to be done in Athens, tribe against tribe and vendetta justice, Athena tells the Eumenides this: no, let our wars range outward hard against the man who has fallen horribly in love with high renown. No true fighter I call the bird that fights at home. Such life I offer you, and it is yours to take. Do good, receive good, and be honored as good are honored. Share our country, the beloved of God. So the Furies' new job, then, will be to take all of the hatred and internal strife of the Athenians and turn it outward on the rest of the world. What is this? It's a foundation myth, and the system of Athenian justice is set up by divine authority. There's something political to this, too. Aeschylus could be implying that the court is also capable of handling matters surrounding the government of Athens, as well as matters like homicide. And this was deeply revolutionary. In this case, the court could decide what we might call constitutional matters. Stay tuned for my next lecture on the basic principles of tragedy and how Sophocles puts them into practice.